During this lesson, we'll be creating project expenses. For the demonstration of creating project expenses, we'll specifically create an AP invoice journal and post it towards the project. Then we'll create a general journal and post it towards the project. And then we'll finally take a look at AP invoice and how you can book that expense towards the project. And then after we get done, we'll review the project and see exactly what happened. All right, we're going to demonstrate creating some project expenses, and so far what I've done is I've created project 220, which is the project expense project. And what we're going to do is book an AP invoice journal right away, so you can pretend that basically you had a third party or some vendor do some sort of work for you, and they've sent their invoice in, and now you have to make sure it's coded to the project properly. So you're the person in accounts payable that is going to be entering in the invoice. So we'll go to accounts payable, and then under invoices there's invoice journal somewhere. There it is. So we'll select the invoice journal menu item, and basically this is going to bring you to your AP invoice journal, and we'll just create a new one, and we'll go to the lines, and then basically we can add a line, a vendor type. We can say what vendor performed the service for us, and we'll just say that it was Economics Part Supply, and they invoice, we'll just say today, and it's invoice 1000, and it was for $1,000. And instead of having ledger as the offset account, this is where you specify project as your offset account, and then you have to define which project. So it's 220, so I'll sort this descending. So we'll just pick our project, and then notice when you pick the project, you have the project tab up here, so you can go over to the project tab and you can take a look. You have the project date, you have your offset account. If you want to define an activity, you can. Category, what resource is assigned to this specific expense transaction, and then the quantity, cost, and sales price, and then there's the sales tax information as well. So with that being said, I'll just leave it as is and we'll post. So once you post, then you're going to have that vendor balance out there to be paid. Your project's going to have an expense on it for $1,000 associated with invoice 1000, and it should be good to go. We'll come back and review that. So let's run a different type. This is very, very, very similar. So you can take the same scenario where you had a service done or you bought some kind of parts for a product, and I'm saying parts loosely because we're not going to define an item. It's just some sort of expense or some sort of invoice that you want to register towards a project. So we can do this from a general journal as well, and that's in the general ledger module. So under the general ledger module, under journal entries here, you can see there's a general journal. So we'll create a general journal, and we'll just pick the one that we have right there, and we'll go to the lines, and it's the same process. So if you want to define the primary account as vendor, you can. So I'll do that. I'll just pick vendor, and then you can pick a vendor account. It doesn't have to be a vendor account. You can do what you want here, but we'll just say this one was for 2000. The offset's going to be project, and we'll pick our same project number. There's 220, and yeah, I put the amount in there. You can see we have the tax information on the far right and some other things. You can also see that we have that project tab again, and it's the same as you were seeing on the AP invoice journal, is that you can define all the same fields. But once you're completed with the definition of your line and the journal, you can post. And we should have a $2,000 expense booked to our project with a $2,300 sales price. And then the final way that I want to show you is doing this through or logging an expense to a project through an AP invoice, not an invoice journal, an invoice. So to do that, you can be in the accounts payable module again, and there's a form or a menu item under invoices called pending vendor invoices. You can go here, and you can actually just create a new vendor invoice, And this is the invoice form that automatically spurs or comes up when, I'm going to hit no here, comes up when you try and invoice directly from a purchase order. But first thing you want to do is define the vendor, and I'll pick hardware components, give it a invoice number. I'll call this one 3000. And the rest of it I'll leave alone. I'll just add a new line. So the thing to note is if you add a line and then you define an item number, that's going to be an item type transaction according to the project module, because the category, so I'll just show you real quick. So if I go down to the project module or the project tab down on the line details, you can see that if I hook it up to a project, and I'll just pick city manufacturing real quick, you can see since I have an item number selected, it only gives me transaction type item for category selection. All right, so I'm going to remove this line. And there's the concept of procurement categories, which are basically treated like non-stock items in the system, but you can have a list of different procurement categories, and we'll just say that we had some, vehicle expenses, sure. So we'll pick vehicle expenses, we'll define a quantity. We rented, let's say for 3 days, we rented a vehicle, and it was eaches, and then you can define quantity, $100 a day, $300 cost price to us. So if we go look at the project tab, we note that the project ID is not populated. So I'll grab our project 220, and then you can see that the project category field is now not grayed in. You can select something, but you can see all the different transaction types. So we can go ahead and pick one of these. I'll just put it under travel, it's other travel costs. Define a worker, define your line property, project date if you want, unit price, and yeah, should be good here. And you can see the sales price is coming in at $100. And anyways, once you have this defined, you can go ahead and post your AP invoice. All right, and then let's go back and take a look at that project now. So we'll go back to project 220. So I'll go to my all projects list. I'll just sort it descending. There it is. And what I want to do is take a look at the posted transactions form here. And I can see there's my different expenses. Here's my $1,000 one that came from the AP invoice journal. Here's my $2,000 one that came from the general journal. And there's my $300 one that came from the AP invoice for the procurement category. Ultimately, we did things 3 different ways, but they all came to the project in the same way. So that's just an example, or 3 examples of how you can enter expenses. The most common one that I have run into in my lifespan using AX is the AP invoice journal, where the company basically receives an invoice, and then they just put in an AP invoice journal to offset project to get the expense towards the project. So yep, that's the 3 different ways that you can enter an expense, or 3 of the primary ways you can enter an expense to a project. And next we'll get into how you can do so through an expense report.